this channel. I thought that it would be an appropriate first video on my channel by showing you a place that's very close and dear to my heart. A city that I have visited several times over the years. And a city that I will certainly return to. For anyone who hasn't visited this city, this is going to be a guided tour. I'm going to show you some of the most interesting, historically valuable, and just personal and nostalgic places that I know. This, of course, is the city of Amsterdam. Now, Amsterdam is, of course, the capital city of the Netherlands. The Netherlands, for people who don't live in Europe, is a country just north of Belgium and France, and to the west of Germany. It's a fantastic country with extremely archaic and historical culture. However, the country also has a very futuristic and modern system which propels it forward into the 21st century. The city itself is quite a small capital city, as it hosts only around 920,000 people. Now, to the Americans or the Asians worldwide, that might sound minuscule. However, the country itself is not a large country, and with that being said, it's important to understand that there's a lot of countries in Europe which are very small, but don't underestimate this country, as it has thousands of years of amazing and interesting history. Now, the city is notorious in today's day and age for rather nefarious activities. However, I believe that the city gets a rather unwarranted international reputation. Obviously, besides these things that we may explore later in the video, the city is largely famous for its diverse selection of art museums, having some of the finest in the world. As well as this, the architecture and the structure of the city is extremely interesting, as the whole city is based around the Amstel River. Now, the city was born as a small town around over 1,000 years ago. However, in the Middle Ages, around the 1300s, it became famous for a thing that became known as the Miracle of Amsterdam, which was when a sick man vomited up some food that he was given at the church, and it actually into a fire pit, and it actually remained perfectly intact by the next morning. This led to many people coming to Amsterdam to see as a pilgrimage, and led to the expansion of the city. Now, the city itself operates using a tram system, which is, I must say, is very useful for the Americans or other countries that rely on cars. It may be confusing slightly to understand how a capital city can function almost entirely on other modes of public transport. However, buildings and also bikes. Myself, I've had enough experience exploring this city, and I must say that the travel and communication links are so helpful and simple, even for foreigners coming over to visit. As you'll see later in the video, I'll show you a train station and a route to get to the centre of Amsterdam, and the route that I usually take when I visit this amazing city. However, as a side note, I think it's, for me personally, city breaks are all about walking and exploring. Amsterdam is not a mega city. It is extremely walkable, and it's, although a lot of the streets do look similar, it's manoeuvrable, and I would personally insist that if you're going to this city, you very much should try your best to walk, as this way you will discover things that you would have just never seen otherwise. For example, when I go to Amsterdam, and I've been 4 times now since 2020 or 2019, I have found multiple restaurants, interesting buildings, and also met some amazing people on the way. Although, be careful where you walk, as tourists do get approached to purchase things that may be slightly distasteful. So here we are, a bog standard and traditional street in Amsterdam. I thought that it would be interesting and useful to introduce you to this city by showing you a typical street and what you might expect to find in Amsterdam. So here we have a basic street. As you can see, everything is based off the canal. There are many long boats, and boats are a huge method of transportation in this city, and I would recommend going on a tourist boat, as it helps you it gives you a new perspective to the city, and the tour guides usually provide you with some really interesting and insightful information. Now, for non-Europeans, the architecture may be extremely intriguing and peculiar. Now, the reason for this is because the buildings in Amsterdam tend to be much more upright and vertical rather than building wide buildings. Now, although I'm not too sure on the reason for this, I could assume that it's because of the space. One interesting thing about the houses is that most of them have this hook on the top, and you will notice that if you go to Amsterdam, here you can see a hook. Now, I'm told that the reason for this is because they haul their luggage and belongings up to the top window as the stairs are too narrow. So here we're about to go to our next location, and this is one of the most historically significant places in the whole of the city. So here we are at the Anne Frank house on Prinsengracht, which is the street name, I believe. So this house, which you can see in front of you, is extremely historically significant, as it belonged. Well, the house didn't actually belong to the Frank family. However, it was where Anne Frank and her family, and two other families I believe, hid in the annex from the Nazi occupants in the Netherlands from around July 1942 to late November 1940. Late in the year in 1944. They did this by hiding behind a secret bookcase which concealed an attic. The reason that this place is so famous is mainly because Anne Frank documented her existence in this attic for 2 years in a diary, and upon her death, her dad published the original copy, known as The Diary of a Young Girl, in Dutch in 1952. So, Anne Frank was around a 13-year-old girl when she was forced to go hide up in the annex of this building. She was born in Austria, I believe, and moved to the Netherlands when she was a young girl. After being caught by the Nazis and escorted to Auschwitz concentration camp. Now, for people who don't know, Auschwitz-Birkenau was the most lethal and harsh concentration camp in the history of the Nazi Germany dictatorship and leadership. Birkenau was known as the death camp, and Auschwitz was known as the work camp. Some of the most horrifying things that have ever happened took place in these camps. However, Anne was transferred from Auschwitz to another camp called Bergen-Belsen in November of 1944. And it is said, obviously, these things are unknown because there was no documentation in these camps. It is said that she died around February or March, presumably of a disease called typhus. Now, disease was rife in the concentration camps, and she was a young girl, and it's a tragic story, it really is. Allegedly, her sister died around a day before her, and to the people that were around Anne, they said that this sucked all the strength that she had left to survive, and she died. She was only 15 years old. It is such a tragic story, for a young girl to be so brave and so mature in the face of one of the worst things that's ever happened in modern history, one of the worst genocides ever. She has to be admired, and you should revere what she did, and I think you can take something from Anne's story. She never got the chance to live, but her legacy lives on, and her book is one of the most powerful and heart-wrenching stories of all time, especially as obviously we know what happened to her in the end, which makes it even more tragic. vacation to Amsterdam, I would strongly suggest that you come pay this place a visit if you're a couple or you're, over 18. I think it's probably too heavy for younger people. I would say, especially, if you're a family, I think it's probably too much, as it really is dark. Knowing, and understanding the things that happened under the Nazis and the occupation of a lot of European countries such as France, the Netherlands. Now, the tour itself is, I didn't think it was particularly spectacular. However, I think more is, once again, it's about just being in the place where she once was. It's not about incredible artifacts or anything like that. So I would strongly recommend it, as it's one of the most important things that you can do if you're coming to Amsterdam. You need to pay your respects to Anne and the family, as most of them were killed in the concentration camps, and I believe it was only Otto, her father, and a couple of people from the other families who survived. As far as I'm aware, Anne and her sister and her mother were all either killed or died in the concentration camps. Now, to the right of this building, you can see a fantastic looking church or cathedral. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what it actually is, but I have always found it so picturesque, and I think it's probably quite fitting that the place where her family was forced to live was conveniently placed next to a religious building of some sort. And I personally think it's one of the most stunning buildings that I've seen, and I would recommend that you go. Now on to the next. On a more cheery and interesting note, this is the Rijksmuseum. Now, the Rijksmuseum is known as like the national museum for Dutch artists. It hosts famous works by Vermeer, Rembrandt, and lots of other famous Dutch artists. It was moved to Amsterdam in 1808. I believe it was moved from The Hague, although I could be wrong on that. I've never actually visited this place, so I can't personally recommend it to you. Every time I've been to Amsterdam, it's never quite grabbed my attention, as it doesn't really have a lot of the names that I'm a huge fan of. And this is not to say that it's a bad museum, because I cannot give my opinion on that, and I'm sure if I went inside, I'm sure I would love it. I'm a big fan of any art, particularly, all the Renaissance, and also the Romantic period. I'm a fan of any art, to be honest. So I'm sure it's great, and the building itself is gorgeous. Now I wanted to show you this little building here, which I took a picture of years ago when I first came to Amsterdam, around 2020, January 2020. I remember seeing this building when around this area, and I thought that it was just so quaint and so elegant, and I knew I had to take a picture of it, and if I can find it, I'll do my best to insert it in the video. I just think it's so picturesque, and I would love to live in a place like that one day. So, the Rijksmuseum, I would recommend it, even though I've never been. And now it's time to move on to the next attraction in the tour. So, as we approach this building, walking through the museum quarter, we arrive at the famous Van Gogh Museum, or Van Gogh. I'm not actually sure how you pronounce it, but I'm going to say Van Gogh, as that's what we say in England mostly, or where I'm from. So apologies if that's wrong. I'm not Dutch. I have no history or any family from the Netherlands, so I struggle with some of the pronunciation. So obviously Vincent van Gogh has become one of the most infamous characters in modern history. He was born on the 30th of March 1853, and he's become renowned worldwide as one of the most legendary painters ever. It's interesting to note that Van Gogh actually died broke and unknown to most, and he also spent a lot of time in a mental hospital or a mental facility in Arles in the south of France, which is where he actually painted a lot of his most famous paintings, such as Bedroom in Arles. It's described that he probably suffered from some form of schizophrenia, and he died around age 37. Now, the museum itself hosts some of his most famous pieces of work, such as the Bedroom in Arles, the sunflowers, which is one of the most famous pieces of work ever in the history of humanity, the almond blossoms, which is probably my favourite, and obviously hundreds more. And it's also conveniently located in the museum quarter, which is just behind the Rijksmuseum, and it's a sort of park which has 3 or 4 museums. And if you're there, I'd probably recommend doing all 3, as especially Van Gogh and the Rijksmuseum. These are 2 massive and culturally significant biographies of the Netherlands and its history. So I would certainly recommend visiting this museum. I came here with my cousin. We went to this museum quarter, and we actually didn't go in this museum. My personal reason was I just felt like I had already seen most of Van Gogh's works on the internet, or on the internet, and it didn't feel worthy. Whatever the ticket price is, 15-16 euros, could be more than that, but it certainly wasn't cheap, and it just felt a bit ridiculous to me. However, once again, if this is your kind of thing, I would certainly recommend it, as you're not going to find a more extensive Van Gogh collection probably in the world. Obviously this is his country, his home country. So yeah, I would certainly recommend it. And even just come and check out the museum quarter. It's a very quaint, very nice open space, trees and stuff, so it's certainly get out here, come bring a sandwich or whatever. So that's the Van Gogh Museum, and now it's time to take you to the next museum. This is the MoCo Museum, or the Modern Contemporary Art Museum. Now, the museum hosts popular modern works of art from kind of the last century, the last 70 years or so. It has a lot of famous, extremely famous artists in, such as Jean-Michel Basquiat, Banksy, Keith Haring, and of course Andy Warhol. I have actually visited this museum, and it was quite expensive. I think it was maybe €16 on the door. Didn't need to book tickets. I did enjoy myself, and I'll insert a couple of pictures as I believe they change the exhibitions reasonably often, and this was 2 years ago, so I hope I'm not spoiling it for anyone. But yeah, I mean, they had some really interesting stuff, and it was my cousin's suggestion to go, actually. I didn't even know it existed, I'd never heard of it, but I'm glad that I went, and I saw some thought-provoking stuff. As it's obviously more modern, don't go in there expecting, Picasso's or Van Gogh or anything of that sort. It's, modern artists, your Banksy's, Andy Warhol. There was a lot of his stuff in there. There was a lot of Banksy stuff, which I like. I'm a fan of Banksy. So if you're into modern art, political art, go for it. However, I must say, upstairs there was an exhibition about AI and NFTs, the kind of bored monkey thing or whatever it was. That really didn't do anything for me, and to be honest, I felt a bit ripped off. But that's part of the game. It's a museum at the end of the day, so not everything you're gonna like. But I would certainly say that if you want to come see some interesting artwork, I would certainly recommend it, and it's a different thing to the older stuff that most of the city has. So on to the next place. Here we have the Rembrandt House Museum. Now, Rembrandt is probably the second most famous Dutch painter, after Van Gogh, obviously. Although he's not second in technique. He was born in 1609, I believe, and was alive during the Baroque period. And he's achieved legendary status as an artist, for sure, worldwide. He's definitely one of the most famous artists of all time, and certainly from that period. This was actually a house where he worked and painted for around 20 years, if I believe so. It has of course been restored and turned into a museum itself, and it houses over 1,000 different artifacts about him and his lifestyle. Now, what's interesting about Rembrandt is that he actually lived in Amsterdam for basically most of his career, and actually died in Amsterdam in 1669, I believe. So I would certainly recommend coming to this place. Once again, it depends what you're interested in, but I think this is very interesting, as he was living at a time that was just so much different to today. We're talking 400 and, over 400 years ago now. And if you just look at the building itself, you can see that it was constructed in 1606, which is incredible. The building's 418 years old, something like that. I mean, that's just incredible, isn't it? So yes, I would recommend coming here. And now it's time for the next part of the tour. Here we have arrived at Amsterdam Central Railway take you to many places. It's the main train station in Amsterdam. I believe it's an international station, although I'm sure it probably, I'm not sure, but I would imagine it can probably take you to different places in the Netherlands too. But you can do that from other stations, such as Station Sloterdijk. Now, this station can take you to London. It can take you to Vienna, Zurich, Brussels and Prague. Now, I can actually vouch for this, as I went to Paris for a few days and then got the train to Amsterdam, and it was around £100 ish, which is about $130 roughly. Don't take my word for that, could be entirely wrong. But it was fantastic. It took a long time because it was delayed as it was snowing really heavily, but I would 100% do it again. And we got on at Paris Gare du Nord, which obviously means the north, and then got on there. It took about 4.5 hours, maybe 5 hours because of the delay. We arrived in Amsterdam Central, and it was snowing, and I'll insert a video or a picture if I can. It was fantastic, and it's a fantastic looking building as well. It very reminds me of the Rijksmuseum very much. So if you're looking to do multi-city travel, I would recommend that. I think, especially if you're American, coming over, or from Asia, why not kill two birds with one stone and go to many cities which are all very close. Now, here is an area known as Leidseplein, or Leidseplein, to pronounce it in the Dutch way, I believe. Now, this area is somewhere I wanted to show you, because I just thought that it was fantastic and so lively, and it kind of reminded me of parts of England in an unusual way. Now, from my research, although this could be wrong, Leidseplein is like a very common and busy area for things like socialising, drinking, going out, meeting new people. So if that's kind of your thing, I would certainly recommend it. And it's always very lively. Even, there were times when I was out at 1, 2 a.m, later than that even, and it was lively. And we're talking weekdays. Obviously it's much livelier on the weekend, but it was just fantastic. And it's a very nostalgic area of Amsterdam for me, as when I first came here for my 18th birthday with my mum in 2019, late 2019, we stayed and we got on the tram to Leidseplein, and it was just, so amazing. And that's a really dear memory for me. So here we have a lot of these sort of cafe bar things. I actually watched, so the 2022 World Cup was on in Qatar, and me and my cousin came here in November, I believe it was, and we watched England versus Iran in one of those bars. I think it was called maybe Cafe 22 or something of that sort of nature. And as you can see, even on Google Maps, there's lots of people, it's bustling, everyone looks really friendly. It was a joke, and yeah, it's fantastic. And it gets super busy and super lively, super energetic, later on in the evening. So I would certainly recommend coming to this area. There's lots of food. So I just wanted to make a quick stop at an institution that you might have heard of, known as Burger King. Now, when I came here, originally came in 2019, and then I came in early 2022 with my friends before COVID. were so broke and we came here and we ate every day, you know. Terrible food, terrible for you. But it leads on to the point in Amsterdam that I found it difficult to find a lot of food. And that's not to say that there isn't a lot of food. It's that as a group of lads, or, you know, a group of guys, or, you know, even I guess if you're a couple it's different, but I don't want to constantly be sitting down every time I have to eat, you know, getting a table, you know, getting the bill and all that sort of stuff, getting drinks, waiting for a meal. We just wanted to be grabbing food quick and then getting on with the things that we wanted to get on with. And obviously, you know, the food's expensive if you're sitting down in restaurants, cafes, every time you're eating. You know, the food is not very reasonably priced in Amsterdam. From my experience, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm sure there's a lot of spots, you know, if you're a local, you'll know some good spots, and I did find some nice spots, to be fair. There was a nice smash burger place. But yeah, I'd recommend, I wouldn't recommend going to Burger King, but I'd recommend eating on the go, you know, to save the thinning of your pockets, as you really can end up spending, you know, hundreds on food if you're eating, you know, 3 times a day, sitting down in cafes and restaurants. So I have a couple of places that I thought I'd show you just as a tip. So here we have Albert Heijn, or Albert Heijn, or I don't even know how you pronounce that, but it's you know, the Walmart, or the Asda, or the, you know, if you're English or whatever, it's the supermarket, grocery store of Amsterdam. I can't speak for the whole of the Netherlands, but you know, they sell basic things: bread, drinks, you know, meats, cheeses, you know, snacks, all the kind of stuff that you'd find. And we found a lot of the time that even just grabbing something like this and eating it back at the hotel, you know, some bread and some cheese and some ham, put that in a sandwich, and you know, that'll keep you good to go for, you know, I ate like 5 of them because I had the munchies. But I actually ate a whole loaf of bread's worth of ham and cheese sandwiches, so that's probably like 8,000 calories or something crazy. You know, blame the Mary Jane for that. But yeah, it's a really good place and it has a lot of stuff. So I definitely recommend going there and grabbing some food, you know. It's easy enough, so why would you not do it? We actually have a good story about, so my friend, we sent him down to the shop to get some ketchup for our sandwiches, and he actually ended up coming back with tomato puree, which is, you know, is no comment. So this is another place, actually. This is my favourite place to eat in Amsterdam. It's called New York Pizza. They have them all over Amsterdam. They're everywhere. It's very, very convenient. I believe each slice is like €4, which is about £3, something like that. They're very decently portioned slices. You know, it's kind of a play on a classic New York slice. And so yeah, I used to come here, and this is where I would eat most of my food. So here, I wanted to show you a place for the adults that you might want to go to if you're in Leeds. Now this is a place that's very important to me, as it holds a lot of nostalgic value, and it's a place called Coffee Shop Easy Times. Now, there'll be nothing easy about these times, trust me. If you end up in there, you know, you might end up facing some hard times if you're not into this stuff. And look, let me first say, I do not recommend doing any substances ever. You know, I did it, and I wish I didn't do it. You know, they're nothing but a waste of time. However, if I know that these, you know, Amsterdam's world famous for these things, and I wanted to give you an option to go to if you so decided, you know, I thought I'd leave it late into the video. Hopefully all the younger people are asleep by now and just the adults are still awake. Yeah, so go at your own risk, I don't advise you to do this. However, I know that obviously a lot of people want to go to these places, and so it's only fair that I really do show you, what's in store in Amsterdam, because these are literally everywhere. There's probably thousands of these in Amsterdam. Maybe not that. Yeah, probably thousands, to be fair. They're everywhere, and there's some really high grade ones, and some lower grade, and then some mixtures. It's a great shop. I've only ever had great memories there. I wish I could tell you the stories. I remember when we first got here, me and my friends. It was the 2nd of January 2020, and we sat right where my mouse is, right where those tables are, and we all sat, and we obviously smoked, and I remember we were just looking. It was dark, obviously, because it was about 6 o'clock, and it was January as well, so it's always dark. It was freezing, and we just sat there, and we were just like, man, this is so good. This is just so good. And I'll see if I can find a picture from that time. I'm sure that I have something, and I'll insert it. I have some videos for sure, but I can't put them in the video, or else this will probably get removed. But yeah, I remember we were sat there up by them tables, and we looked out, and we were just like, man, it doesn't get any better than this. With your friends, living life, and that's what it's all about. This is the thing. Why I'm doing this tour. I want to give you guys some recommendations to go and enjoy yourself, with your friends, or with your girlfriend, or with your boyfriend, or whatever, your parents. Making memories is so important, and I want you to truly be able to come to Amsterdam and know what some things you want to come see already. You don't have to follow my recommendations at all if you don't want, obviously. But if you do, that's cool. And I'm sure that you'll have a great time regardless. And it's all about just making memories, doing what works for you. So with that, we're going on to the next place. So here we are at a place called Wester Park. Now, this specific sort of weird looking place with the columns is like at the start of Wester Park, and I remember coming here with my cousin in 2022, and then I came here with my most recent visit to Amsterdam, which was on the 15th of January, or something like that, the 15th of January 2024, so this year. And we came here at like 2 a.m. and we rolled the J, and we were sat underneath this thing, and it was freezing. It was snowing so bad. I'll see if I can insert the video to show you how bad it was. And it was just, these moments are just incredible, and you can't put a price on these things. Traveling the world, seeing things with your friends, seeing amazing weather, things like snow. We don't really get snow where I live much in England. I know you might think we do. We don't. It's mostly just rain where I live. The rest of England gets snow. So yeah, it's a fantastic place, and yeah, so I came here with my cousin as well. I remember, because I'm super hyper, so I was up for walking all day. Get up at 10 or whatever, because I don't particularly love the early mornings, and then be out till 1, 2 a.m, 3 a.m. And my cousin's not like that. He's an up at 10 guy, back at 3 in the afternoon. tram everywhere, don't get me wrong. But I think you should walk. You know, it's cooler, it's more fun, you get to see so much more of the city, random places like this. You know, you'll never see this on another Amsterdam tour. Because, well, for two reasons. One, because it's not very particularly exciting or significant. Two, because nobody ever really sees it. You know, besides the locals, I guess. Now, as we're going down this street here, we're approaching Wester Park, which is on the right, as you can see. And Wester Park is a very nice and quaint park in the west of Amsterdam. Yeah, hence the name. I can't believe I almost said it wasn't in the west. And it's, you know, it's your classic kind of park. You know, it's got things for kids. It's got, you know, the canal, obviously. I think it's got maybe a little lake in the middle, you know, a little pond, I guess, kind of thing. Some dogs and all that kind of stuff. It's lovely. Me and my cousin, because we were walking back to the hotel in the afternoon kind of thing, and we walked back, and we were kind of just thought, why don't we stop in the park, see what's kicking off? And we went and checked it out. It was lovely, very pleasant. The one thing that's weird is that, like, it's shaped like a rectangle, like, perfectly. You know, it's a very Amsterdam thing to do, to have a park that's shaped, like, perfectly, you know, in kind of a rectangular shape. But yeah, I really enjoyed the stay in the park. Didn't stay for very long. But next time I go, I'm not really sure when I'll be returning to Amsterdam, if it's any time soon, but I'll definitely be... Oh, I'm not really sure when I'll be returning to Amsterdam, if it's any time soon, but I'll definitely be visiting soon. You know, within the next couple of years, I'm sure. And yeah. So as we go down this road, and this is the road that we've walked many times, just another view of Wester Park there. You know, it's just a classic park. It's nothing particularly incredible. I just wanted to show you what was on offer. You know, something different. You probably wouldn't know about Wester Park unless you've probably seen it. But if you want somewhere to go hang out in Amsterdam that's not far from the centre, go hang out in Wester Park. It's a cool little place, and you know, obviously when I went with my cousin, and every time I've been to Amsterdam it's been freezing. I went in October, I went in November, I went in January twice. So yeah, every single time I've been, it's been horrific. The past two times in particular have been horrible weather. So, you know, it was snowing when I went recently, and the year that in 2022 when I went with my cousin, it was raining all the time, and yeah, it wasn't the most pleasant thing in the world. So as we walked down this, well, you know, we zoomed down it, but in theory you would walk down this, and it is a long walk. You know, this is probably a bit excessive, by the way, but I just love to walk. You know, I'm one of those annoying guys that loves to walk, and pushes it. You know, I remember making my friends walk. It was like 2 a.m. at this point, and we were at that place, rolling a J, and we were all, you know, we were all very tired, let's put it that way. And I said to him, you know, let's walk it home. It's like a 50-minute walk, why not? You know, when you walk in one straight road, for some reason it feels so much further. I just wanted to quickly show these on Haarlemweg, Lommerweg. I believe that's a street, and obviously my pronunciation's terrible, so I apologise to any Dutch people listening. But these apartments are just truly gorgeous. gorgeous, and I remember seeing them before they were built, and now that they're built, I'd love to come and visit one day. I mean, come live here one day. You know, I could definitely see myself living in Amsterdam. And, you know, these apartments are gorgeous. I'm sure they come with a not so gorgeous price tag. But, you know, that's obviously part of the game. And, yeah, I just kind of wanted to show them briefly. You know, as we go on to sort of the end of the tour and wrapping it up. Because the next destination is a hotel recommendation. And, you know, this is obviously not an advert. You know, I don't even need to say that. I have 0 subscribers, 0 views. But, you know, I just wanted to make that clear. This is just a personal recommendation for people looking for somewhere to stay. Now, this is XO Hotels Park West. And it's a hotel near Station Sloterdijk. It's in like the west of Amsterdam, but not far from the centre, you know. Well, it kind of is, but on a tram it's like, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Yeah, I love this area. You know, I know it well now, and I just think it's a fantastic and peaceful area. Not that Amsterdam's a super busy, you know, it's nothing like London or New York or any mega city, even Paris, which isn't, you know, obviously doesn't compare to places like New York, but, you know, Amsterdam is absolutely nothing compared to that. But this area is just so gorgeous and quiet, lovely, and, you know, never had any trouble. I've stayed at this hotel 3 times. My mum was the one that actually found it. So, you know, shout out to my mum. She's a good one. But yeah, you know, as you can see, there are 2 guys with a doobski in their hand. But the hotel, you know, it's nothing amazing to look at. It's actually really nice inside. It's really nice and fancy. And here's the line. The tram line is called Molenwerf. And if you get on that Demian Sneap, if you go on it, you know, stay on, and one of the stops will be Leidsplein, and you'll find yourself in that area that we were just at previously. So, and it's actually free. This is a little tip for you. If you get on this station here, you'll find that line in particular, as long as you don't get off at the last stop, you know, maybe there's one there, I don't know. But this tram does not have any ticket guy on it, so you can just jump on for free. Every time I've been to Amsterdam, besides the last one, because one of my friends were being annoying, didn't want to walk anywhere, so he wanted to jump on multiple trams, and then I had to buy tickets. But usually I jump straight on that tram, you know, back and forth. I was using it multiple times a day, back and forth. That's just a little area that I used to like to smoke at. And here, as we get towards kind of the end of the tour, I wanted to show you the area walking towards Station Sloterdijk. Now, when I came with my cousin, I was 21, something like that, for my 21st. I used to smoke down there every night in that little corner. It's not particularly classy, but, you know, it's got a weird sentimental attachment to me now. You know, it's weird how kind of those things stick with you. But yeah, you know, obviously that's not a particularly exciting place, and I probably wouldn't recommend going there. This is kind of like not an industrial, but it's kind of like a retail park kind of thing, you know, where there's a lot of businesses. We're kind of outside the centre at this point, so it's more, you know, business based, but it's still a nice, cool place. You know, this is the thing about the Netherlands in general. It's a very attractive and, you know, it's a very attractive and architecturally sound country. Now this train here is just a little cool thing to show you. You know, it's actually like a cafe or a restaurant or something. I used to walk past it quite often and think, wow, that's rather interesting. You don't see stuff like that very often. Yeah. So, the final stretch of the tour is the walk towards Station Sloterdijk. Now, as we approach Sloterdijk, it's a very significant train station. You know, you can go to Rotterdam, I believe. You can go to the airport, Schiphol Airport. It's like 15 minutes away on the train, so it's beautiful. The tickets are cheap. You know, a few euros, maybe like €3 or €4. It's no problem. So I would certainly recommend, you know, if you are going to Schiphol, save yourself a taxi. Especially if you're staying at Park West. We just got on the train to Sloterdijk and then walked it from Sloterdijk. This is Sloterdijk here. And then one final spot I wanted to show you. This is when I was 18 with my friends. This is where I used to hang out all the time underneath this bridge. It sounds very not particularly classy, but you know, when you're 18, who is? And so with that being said, I just wanted to thank everybody for watching this video, and there'll be more to come in the future. You know, this is the first of many. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.